everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is about keeping track of time in your story, which I think is very, very important. So I decided I would do a video about how I keep track of time in my story, and so maybe you'll get some ideas on how you can do this as well. So why is keeping track of time in your story so important? I'll tell you why. Have you ever been writing and you just write the scenes, you just write what comes to you, and then later on you think about it and you're like, I don't really even know what day of the week it is in my story. Like, I have no idea. And sometimes you might come across one of these situations where you just kind of like forget, and you may mix up the days, and you may not notice it, but your readers may notice it. So what I'm talking about is if you ever have today in your story is Monday, and then like the next day can't be Saturday, right? I mean, unless you're starting like a brand new scene and you make it clear it's some time has passed, you can't just make like the next day be a weekend when clearly the day before was a Monday. And maybe that just seems silly, but you know, it's just so easy to do because sometimes you're just not really thinking about what day it is in your story. You're just thinking about your characters and what your characters are doing. So I'm going to show you how I keep track of time in my story, and I do highly recommend you do this. Now, I think this is kind of one of those issues that a lot of authors dread. And I've seen some authors, like after they finish their story, they then say they're going to go work on the timeline. And then that's when it's just the frustration begins, because, you know, you might have to rework some scenes and, you know, just to have it all make sense. And so you don't want to do that, because there's an easier way. All you need to do is keep track of the time as you write. By keeping track of the time as you write, you know exactly what day it is when you're writing, and then it's just so much easier to go back and make changes if you need to. And also, I think an added benefit of keeping track of time as you write is that sometimes it gives you ideas for stories. Like if your story takes place in May, like this is a real example. I had my story take place in the month of May, and Mother's Day was in May, so I needed to somehow address that and put that into my story. So holidays, they can give you ideas for scenes. Okay, so here's how I do it. First of all, get you a calendar. Doesn't really matter what year the calendar is unless that year is specific to your story. Usually when I start a new story, I just kind of pick up whatever calendar I have available and I just go from there. But sometimes, especially if I'm working on a series, like let's say, for example, in one series, I've got the story, like story 1 takes place in the year 2020, or let's just say 2021 because 2020 sucked. So 2021, and then like the next story, I've got to make sure that the next story follows the same, you know, sequence. So it needs to be like 2022, or, you know, it just needs to make sense, because you want to make sure that, how do I explain? If there's a day where Christmas falls on a weekend, and then, you know, the next year, the Christmas is not going to fall on the exact same day. So you want to make sure you get things like that right. Just the little details you got to get right. Again, you may just like totally not care about this and just maybe you'll miss it, but your readers are sharp and they will call you out on it. So get you a calendar. If you don't have a calendar that you can use, now I actually normally like to use a calendar that's a little smaller than this. This is just what I had on hand. But you can also go online and you can print pages. So I have a story that takes place in 2019, a much better year than 2020, I should say. And so I just went to Google and I went to the images and I just typed in like calendar, you know, for June 2019, and all the stuff came up. And that's how I got this page. So I just printed out a calendar, so you can do that. And so there's no excuse for you not to have a calendar. Now, if you watch my videos, you know that I really love to outline stories with sticky notes. I love sticky notes. They have so many uses and they just help keep me on track. They help keep me focused. And so what I like to do is I like to put the time in my story, on my storyboard. Okay, so let's start with my Anna story. This is the summer story, the summer after 7th. And this takes place obviously during the summer. And what I've done here is these little orange sticky notes, they indicate the weeks. So I've got week 1, I've got week 2, week 3. And it was just easier for me to break this story out into weeks because so much happens in the story and it's just kind of like in a short period of time. It was harder to break this one out like into months. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just easier to just break it down into weeks. So I have on my little trifold board right here, I've got the yellow sticky notes indicating this is the week of June 11th through Sunday, June 11th through Saturday, June 17th. And then these are all the scenes that take place during that week. Now, if you notice on some of these sticky notes, I've got like a little pink highlight right here. What I did was at the start of each new day, I wrote down what day it was on the top of the sticky note. And I just highlighted it just to help me see it better when it's on here. Because when it's on here, sometimes it's kind of hard to see stuff because I've got so much written. But that just makes it stand out a little bit. So I've got right here, I've got all of these, like these are all the scenes that happen on the Sunday. And these are all the scenes that happen on Monday. Then we got, then the next scene happens on a Wednesday because some time has passed. Not that I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake and forget Tuesday. Just nothing happens on Tuesday in my story. So there you go. So if you like to outline, what you can do, and you don't have to do sticky notes if you don't want to, but I just find using sticky notes is so much easier. But what you can do is at the start of like each scene, just write the date down, it's just easier for me to write the date down on the sticky notes because I've got all the scenes here too, and I know exactly what day this scene is going to happen. So just easier for me this way, but this is one way you can break it out. Now I'll show you another way I can break it out, which is actually very, very similar to this method, but I'm going to get out my other board. Okay, this right here is Safe With Me by Rachel and Chase Story, which I am struggling with right now at the moment. This one is broken out into months. So I got here the start of March and the start of April. I mean, I could break this out into weeks if I wanted to, but I don't know. It's just easier, I guess, since the story is so long. It's just easier, I guess, for me to break it out into months. Because the summer story, the Anna story, is probably only going to be about 50,000 words. But this story might be like closer to 80,000 words. So I break it out into months right here. And again, what I do is I write down the date of, like, this scene takes place on March 21st. And this scene takes place on, Friday, March 22nd. And so I just keep track of it that way. And it's really not too difficult. I'm going to move over here now because it's a little easier to talk to the camera. It's just easier for me to put the dates on the sticky notes because it's just easier for me to keep track of the scene. Now, another thing that you could do, which I used to do this when I wrote my story, like I would write in the document what the date was, and I kind of stopped doing that because it just wasn't working for me, because if I had to change a date, I'd have to delete stuff, and this is just so much easier because if I need to change a date, which sometimes I do, like, oh, that scene doesn't need to happen on a Wednesday, that scene needs to happen on a Tuesday, I mean, I can just cross it out with a pen and I can write the new date in, whereas if I have a document, it's just a little more confusing to look at and keep straight. Anyway, this is what I do. I hope this video makes sense. I don't really know if it did, but this just really helps me keep focus. And you know what, even if you're not a plotter, if you're a pantser, I think what you could do if you really wanted to, you could, like, as you write the scene, as you write it, you could put the scene on a sticky note and you can put the date on it. And then, like, as you complete your story, you know, you add the scenes as you go. So how do you keep track of time in your story? Do you like to keep a calendar handy, or do you just write the whole story and then, like, go back at the end and, like, try to figure out what day it is? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any other methods that keep, like, if you have any other great ways or tips to keep track of time in your story, also let me know. Leave me a note in the comments. And I hope this video was helpful. You know, if you want to learn more about my sticky note outline method, I have a video that I've done about it, and it's my most popular video. I'm so thrilled y'all have watched that video and it has helped you. So I will put it up in the cards above, and so you can check it out. All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.